You were never meant to see them, yet heaven pulled back the veil. The Shadow Council is not what the world thinks it is: older than empires, more silent than assassins, more patient than serpents. They sit in secret, in rooms without windows, deciding which dreams are buried and which lies are crowned as truth. They don't wear robes and crowns, they wear charities, media boards, corporate suits. They are the power brokers of the unseen, manipulating timelines and bending destinies to fit their design. They twist spiritual laws for personal gain, rewriting narratives in the air before they ever touch the ground. They use proxy agents, people you'd never suspect, to carry their orders. While their real faces remain hidden in shadow, they have woven themselves into the roots of history's secret societies. But their origin is far older, an ancient rebellion against the throne. Like a dark spiritual boardroom, they decide which voices get silenced, which prophets get discredited, which awakenings get delayed. They enforce contracts not on paper, but on souls' agreements sealed in fear, betrayal, and the currency of bloodline curses. Membership is not given. It is taken through betrayal of light, through dark initiation, through generations pledged to keep humanity blind. And here's the warning. They fear the chosen one because you cannot be bought. You cannot be silenced. You cannot be rewritten. You carry the authority of Luke 19, the power to trample on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy. And nothing shall by any means harm you. They exist to keep men from discovering the divine authority within. But you have already found it. You have already stood before them in the Spirit and declared, "The Lord rebuke you." They wanted you distracted, lost in noise, chasing survival. But God hid you in plain sight, preparing you for the moment the mask would come off. Now, they are exposed. Their contracts are nullified. Their influence is bleeding out in the Spirit, and your promotion is sealed not from their system, but from the courts of heaven. You have been moved to a higher seat, given keys they cannot duplicate, given access they cannot revoke. And while they whisper in panic, you walk forward in boldness, carrying the very light they swore to extinguish. This is not just victory, it is a prophetic turning point. The kingdoms of this world are becoming the kingdom of our God, and you are standing as his witness. Remember, what you saw cannot be unseen, and what you carry cannot be stopped. The Shadow Council has been unmasked, and their time is short. Walk in your authority. Chosen one. For destiny is no longer pending, it has been executed. You didn't get here by accident. You weren't sneaking in through the back door. You were planted, divinely positioned in the very center of what they thought was their untouchable circle. Like Joseph in Pharaoh's palace, you were in the room before the famine, before the shaking, before the exposure. You were hidden in plain sight, a living secret of heaven, invisible until the moment appointed by the Most High. While they thought you were just another face in the crowd, you were listening, watching, decoding. Your spirit was tuned to a frequency they could not jam, hearing conversations without words, discerning motives that never reached their lips. They spoke in coded language, shifting tones, testing loyalties. You read every nuance like prophecy on parchment. They thought you lacked the intellect, the skill, the resources. They thought you couldn't see the board they were moving on. But you were reading their moves 3 steps ahead, because the Spirit of the living God was revealing the playbook to you in real time. Your greatest weapon was not noise, it was silence. Strategic silence. Letting them believe you were harmless, uninformed, even naive. You gave them nothing to strike at, no obvious threat to counter. You operated under divine invisibility, like Elisha's servant suddenly seeing the chariots of fire. They could feel something different about you, but they couldn't name it. That was your shield. In rooms where your name was spoken with suspicion, heaven covered you. You passed through their suspicion like light through glass, untouched, undetected, undeniable. And while you stood still, alliances began to form around you, some knowingly, others unknowingly. People in their own ranks, caught in the orbit of your spirit, began feeding you information without even realizing its weight. Offhand comments became prophetic coordinates. Casual exchanges became keys to doors you didn't even know existed yet. You were gathering puzzle pieces without effort, each one sliding into place in your spirit before your mind even caught up. Every gesture they made, every document they moved, every decision they whispered was recorded in the courts of heaven. You became a living archive of their operations, carrying evidence in your spirit that could not be erased or corrupted. And in the night hours, when the world slept, your dreams became briefings from above. You were shown meetings you never attended, contracts you never signed, rituals you never witnessed in the flesh, yet you saw them clearly. This was not paranoia. This was prophecy. The same spirit that warned Joseph to flee with the child to Egypt was the spirit warning you, positioning you, protecting you. You didn't just suspect, you knew. That inner witness, that unshakable knowing, was your green light from heaven. It was the voice that said, now, move, speak, act. You weren't reacting, you were responding to divine timing, moving in rhythm with the author of destiny. When the time came, you didn't flinch. The hesitation they counted on never came. The intimidation they projected couldn't pierce your armor. Because by the time you acted, the victory was already sealed in the spirit. You weren't stepping into a fight hoping to win. You were stepping into the fulfillment of what heaven had already decreed. And as you moved, the unseen gears turned. The doors they had locked for decades began to swing open. Their network so tightly woven began to fray at the edges. They never saw it coming because they could not comprehend that God himself would use someone they dismissed. They did not understand that their greatest blind spot was underestimating you. But in the kingdom, the stone the builders reject always becomes the cornerstone. And you quiet, observing, underestimated were the one carrying the match that would set their whole operation ablaze in the light of truth. This is how promotion comes not as a reward for ambition, but as the recognition of obedience under pressure, not from their system, but from the throne of the Almighty. Heaven saw you hold the line. Heaven saw you walk the tightrope without falling into compromise. And now heaven has shifted your seat, elevated your voice, and given you authority that no shadow council can revoke. You didn't just pull back a curtain, you tore through an atmosphere. Pulling the mask off in the spirit is not about a photograph or a headline. It is stripping away the camouflage they've worn for centuries. It is forcing them into the open where the light of truth burns through every false identity. You dismantled the illusion layer by layer until what was left could not hide under charity, influence, or title. You revealed that their authority was not inherited from heaven, but stolen through deceit, through rituals, through blood pacts that could never stand in the presence of the Holy One. You saw the symbols, the gestures, the coded phrases they used to mark their territory, and you called them what they truly were. No more euphemisms, no more pretending. You broke the spell, like Elijah on Mount Carmel, when the prophets of Baal could no longer call down fire. Once their masks fell, they were forced to operate without the safety of the unseen. Their movements became sloppy, desperate. You triggered a chain reaction where even their own people began to question their loyalty. Whispers grew into accusations. Alliances fractured under the pressure of truth. Some ran to hide, others tried to cling to power, but the ground beneath them was already shifting. Their manipulation tools, fear, confusion, secrecy, were suddenly powerless against you. You became immune to their intimidation because once you see the source of a counterfeit, it can no longer seduce you. The exposure was not just earthly, it echoed in the spirit. What was once hidden in darkness was announced in the courts of heaven. The angelic host took record. Demonic networks were forced to change their assignments. What they had built in secret was now collapsing in public. And here's the prophetic warning: exposure is more lethal to them than defeat in battle. They can recover from loss, they cannot recover from being unmasked. Once the people see who they really are, their influence evaporates. In that moment, you stood as a living testimony that the kingdom of God does not advance through brute force, but through light, pure, unfiltered. divine light. You walked into the shadow and carried enough truth to burn every mask to ash. And now, the spiritual landscape is different. Their symbols have lost power. Their contracts have no hold. Their fear tactics dissolve in the presence of one who knows who they are in Christ. You proved Ephesians 5:11 in real time, having nothing to do with the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead exposing them. And the moment you did, the authority shifted. They no longer had the luxury of pretending. They were seen, they were named, they were undone. Your promotion didn't come because you outsmarted them. It came because you outobeyed them. This was never about human strategy. It was about divine alignment. Heaven had been watching every moment you chose truth over comfort, every time you held your ground when compromise could have made life easier. Like Joseph before Pharaoh, you weren't just in the right place, you were the right person. Refined in the fire long before the palace doors opened. This was a test of loyalty to the throne, and you passed it when no one was clapping, when no one was watching, when no one believed you could endure. When the Shadow Council fell under exposure, their collapse created a vacuum one only someone with your anointing could fill. The seats they guarded for decades suddenly became vacant, and heaven wrote your name on one of them. This was not a promotion they could grant or block. It was sealed in the courts of God, signed with the authority of the King of Kings. Spiritual authority always precedes visible authority. Now the shift is visible. What was once contested is now uncontested. What they resisted is now undeniable. You were not elevated because you fought for recognition. You were elevated because you fought for righteousness. Every attack they launched, every smear they crafted, became the evidence heaven used to justify your new rank. The resistance you endured was your qualification. The endurance you showed was your crown. Their sabotage was powerless because your assignment was written before their schemes were born. And this promotion isn't just a title, it's territory. It's influence that reaches into realms they can't infiltrate. It's doors opening into places they never wanted you to stand. It's the favor of God creating opportunities faster than their retaliation can move. You've been shifted from defending your position to commanding the battlefield. The same way David was anointed king while Saul still sat on the throne, you have been marked for a rule they can no longer challenge. Now the kingdom is watching, the angelic hosts are aligned, and the authority in your voice has changed. Heaven has validated you before the nations. And the most prophetic part of all your elevation is not just for you. It's a declaration to every chosen one in hiding that obedience is stronger than opposition, and that the tables will always turn in favor of the righteous. This is your moment to walk in it without apology, without hesitation, without fear, because what God has promoted, no shadow council can demote. The risks you faced were not surface level. They were surgical strikes aimed at your spirit, your mind, your credibility. Retaliation came like arrows in the night, crafted in hidden rooms, whispered over in rituals meant to drain your strength before you could speak. They launched spiritual warfare nightmares laced with fear, demonic pressure designed to make you question what you saw. They plotted character assassination, planting seeds in the ears of those who once trusted you, twisting truth until it wore the mask of a lie. Financial blockages appeared out of nowhere, bills stacking, opportunities vanishing, all to exhaust your momentum. They reached for the people closest to you, hoping to make friends and family turn against you. They thought betrayal from within would break your resolve. Surveillance followed both physical and supernatural, as if watching your every move could predict your next one. They crafted false narratives, deliberately misinterpreting your actions to paint you as the villain. Illness crept in without explanation, sudden and strange, meant to slow you down, to keep you in bed instead of in battle. Even your platforms, your voice in the public square faced mysterious restrictions, shadow bans, and closed doors. Invitations vanished without warning. Their goal was to box you in, to make you invisible again. Bribes appeared disguised as opportunities, offers that looked like help, but reeked of entrapment. Some came pretending to be allies, but their real mission was to lure you back into silence, to pull you into a false alliance where your light would be dimmed. And when all else failed, They reached for legal intimidation, waving paperwork and procedures like weapons, not to win in court, but to drain your energy in the process. Each move was designed to make you choose self-preservation over truth. But what they didn't understand is that the Spirit of the living God had already fortified you. Psalm 91 was your shield. Arrows flew by day, terror stalked by night, but it could not come near you. Every trap they set became a testimony. Every attack they launched became evidence against them in the heavenly record. You stood because your footing was not in their system, it was in the rock that cannot be moved. And for every hidden risk they threw your way, there was an even greater hidden protection surrounding you, layer upon layer, until nothing they did could pierce the covering of the Almighty. This is why you are still standing. This is why they lost before the fight began. Divine strategy moved like water flowing where they couldn't block, seeping into places they thought were sealed. God covered you in prophetic timing, shifting your steps before they could anticipate your next move. You were not guessing, you were being guided. Dreams and visions became your advanced intelligence, warning you of traps before they took form. You saw the ambush before the road curved. You heard the whispered plot before it reached their lips. Unexpected allies emerged at moments you didn't orchestrate. People you barely knew carried keys that opened doors you didn't even know you'd need. Angelic intervention blocked physical harm, shifting meetings, rerouting journeys, rearranging entire days to keep you out of harm's reach. Spiritual authority tilted in your favor. Rituals they poured energy into fell flat. Words they spoke in secrecy turned hollow in the air. What they tried to send returned to them multiplied, not by your hand but by heaven's law. Closed doors became more than protection, they became redirection. Every no you heard was God's not here, not now. Words spoken against you reversed mid-flight, transforming into blessings that fed your spirit. Exposure of their deeds didn't just weaken them, it drew people to your side who once stood neutral, and in some cases, even hostile. Their unity fractured as suspicion grew among them. They began questioning each other, diverting their energy inward instead of toward you. And the thing they couldn't handle, the thing they never planned for, was your peace. That unshakable calm in the middle of their chaos frustrated their strategy more than anything else. You didn't flinch, you didn't rush, you didn't respond to bait. While they moved in panic, you moved in purpose. While they whispered in darkness, you declared in light. This was the divine chessboard, and every time they reached for a piece, God was already 10 moves ahead. By the time they realized, it wasn't a contest anymore, it was a verdict. You were untouchable, not because you hid, but because you were carried. The same God who ordered Noah to build before the rain, the same God who told Joseph to store grain before the famine, is the same God who positioned you to outlast, outmaneuver, and outshine every scheme they formed in secret. What this means for other chosen ones watching is more than a story, it's a blueprint. The system that looks untouchable can be dismantled from the inside when God is the one positioning you. Your assignment might not be to storm the gates, but to sit quietly inside until the right moment, carrying the keys they don't even know you hold. Divine assignments often require seasons of concealment, where your worth is hidden from the world but fully known in heaven. You don't need their approval to confront their corruption. You don't need their resources to expose their deception. What you carry, your anointing, your discernment, your obedience is already a weapon forged by the Spirit of God. Every chosen one carries a specific code to break in their generation. For some, it's dismantling lies. For others, it's liberating captives bound by generational covenants. But the pattern is the same. God plants you, prepares you, and then presents you when the timing aligns with His prophecy. Exposure will always come with risk, but it will also come with supernatural reward. Your boldness is not just about your victory. It becomes the spark that ignites courage in others who have been silent too long. When you speak, you create a ripple effect, breaking the atmosphere of fear that has kept others bound. And when you stand, you declare to every other hidden warrior, it's possible to face the system and win without bowing to it. Staying silent when God says speak is spiritual disobedience. When you are instructed to act, Delay is not caution, it's rebellion against the one who sent you. Your courage is contagious. Your obedience inspires. And every chosen one who witnesses your stand receives a silent permission and slip from heaven to do the same in their territory. Heaven keeps records. Your obedience is never wasted. Even in battles where no one else saw your fight, the courts of heaven documented every move. You shifted the spiritual atmosphere for others without even realizing it. Somewhere, someone is walking freer right now because you refuse to back down. This is the power of a chosen one, fully aligned with their assignment. When you rise, others awaken. When you win, others find their own fight. When you shine, others remember they were never meant to hide. The Shadow Council fears exposure more than defeat because exposure robs them of their greatest weapon, mystique. Power thrives in the dark, where questions can't be asked and names can't be spoken. Once the veil is lifted, their influence begins to rot in plain sight. They can survive losing a battle. They cannot survive losing the illusion that they are untouchable. When their secrecy is shattered, their network fractures, because fear no longer binds their followers in the same way. The illusion of control is their fortress. Without it, they are just people fragile, fearful, and desperate to maintain an image that can no longer hold. Public shame corrodes loyalty faster than defeat ever could. The moment light hits their darkness, even their own ranks begin to question, to gossip, to look for the exits. Exposure forces them into reactive mode, and reactive mode is where they make mistakes. It is where they bleed resources, where they lose the rhythm that kept them dangerous. They dread whistleblowers because one revelation often triggers another. Once one mask falls, others follow. Symbols lose their power when they are decoded. Rituals lose their grip when they are named. The fear that once kept everyone silent turns against them, because now it is they who are afraid of being recognized, tracked, and understood. This is the spiritual law they cannot override. When darkness is brought into the light, its authority collapses. The moment people see that their power was borrowed, not earned, manufactured, not ordained, it changes everything. Their hands shake not because you fought them, but because you saw them. And once you see the counterfeit, it can never pass for the real thing again. The moment they were exposed, the spiritual landscape shifted. A new governance moved in over the territory, one rooted in truth, not fear. Hidden victims began to step forward, voices that had been buried for years finding the courage to speak. People who once served the system in silence started to walk away, no longer willing to lend their energy to darkness. Platforms that had been closed to the righteous began to open, giving space for truth-tellers to be heard. Wealth streams that had been siphoned through corruption started to dry up at the source, redirected into hands that would use them for kingdom purposes. Intergenerational curses tied to their secret contracts began to break families that had been bound for decades, suddenly experiencing breakthrough without knowing why. Strategic strongholds that had been untouchable began to crumble, their influence eroding day by day. Prophetic voices rose with a new boldness, unafraid to speak names and call out systems for what they are. The spiritual courtroom moved faster. Cases of divine justice that had been delayed were now accelerated. A ripple effect spread into places you never touched directly, as if your obedience sent shockwaves through realms you couldn't see. Communities started to rebuild trust, not on manipulation, but on the stability of light. Prayer meetings swelled. Worship shifted atmospheres. And even those who didn't yet believe could feel something had broken in the unseen. The collapse of their network wasn't just a defeat, it was the dismantling of an entire way of operating. A prophetic announcement that the days of unchecked shadow rule were over. Now that the dust has settled, your next step is not to relax, it's to fortify. Strengthen your spiritual covering, because victory often draws the attention of enemies you haven't yet met. Guard your gates, your mind, your heart, your circle with the same discipline that got you here. Document what happened, not for your ego, but for the prophetic record. Your testimony will serve as a blueprint for other chosen ones stepping into similar battles. Begin training others in discernment. so they can recognize and dismantle the same patterns without falling into the traps you faced. Remember, your promotion is not a trophy, it's a tool. It's a command to govern new territory with wisdom, humility, and an unshakable devotion to the King who placed you there. Pride is the enemy of sustained elevation, so keep your ear pressed to the mouth of God. Let His instruction, not applause, set your pace. Maintain connection with those who proved loyal in the fire. These are covenant allies, not casual friends. Invest in them, protect them, and let your victories be theirs as well. Use your new influence to open doors for others still locked in the systems you dismantled. Stay hidden in God even as your visibility increases. Public recognition is not the same as divine intimacy. And know this promotion was not the finish line. It was the starting signal for a greater campaign. What you carry now is not just an anointing. It's a prophetic mantle that will draw both opposition and opportunity. Move with precision, move with purpose, and never forget the same God who brought you through the shadow will walk with you into the light. This was your first great victory, but it will not be your last. Destiny is still unfolding, and you are walking in the center of it. You thought the battle was over, but in truth, it has only shifted into a new dimension. Once the Shadow Council was unmasked, the war didn't end, it intensified. Exposure is never the end. It is the beginning of transition. Now you are standing in a realm where authority must be tested, and every test is proof of what heaven already declared about you. You cannot return to the shadows because once your light has been seen, it cannot be hidden. This is the reason the resistance feels different now. It is not meant to destroy you, but to refine the weapon you have become. The enemy is unsettled because you broke the illusion. They can no longer operate with impunity. Their secrecy has been pierced, their mystique stripped away, and that loss of invisibility is more fatal to them than any direct confrontation. They are scrambling to rebuild narratives, whispering in corners, searching for new disguises. But every move they make now is under the eye of heaven. You walk with a prophetic covering that sees through costumes, through speeches, through masks that once fooled even the wise. You carry the lamp of Psalms 119:105, a light to your path, a lamp to your feet, making their schemes visible before they are even finished. But understand this clearly, exposure carries responsibility. To whom much is given, much is required. Your promotion was not ceremonial, it was functional. It came with assignments that stretch beyond your comfort. You are no longer a private soldier, you are a commander in a spiritual war. That means your words carry weight, your silence carries weight, and your decisions ripple through lives you may never meet. Heaven did not elevate you for applause, but for governance. Now you carry keys, and keys are not decorations. They open gates, they lock doors, they decide what enters and what is cast out. Every chosen one must recognize that the battlefield evolves with elevation. Before, you were wrestling with survival, paying bills, protecting your name, enduring betrayal. Now the fight is about stewardship. Can you hold power without corruption? Can you manage authority without arrogance? Can you walk through open doors without forgetting the hand that opened them? These are the questions being written into your test. The enemy knows he cannot strip you of the promotion, but he will attempt to distort how you carry it. This is why humility is your shield now more than ever. There is a warning here: the same silence that once protected you must now be balanced with boldness. You cannot afford to be mute when heaven has given you a voice. Strategic silence is still a tool, but prophetic declaration is now your assignment. What you speak in this season will shake atmospheres, set captives free, and destabilize systems still clinging to power. The council you exposed was only one layer of the structure. There are other networks, other hidden rooms, other strongholds that will quake when your voice pierces through. Do not underestimate the power of dreams and visions. They were your compass before, and they will be your compass again. In the night, the Spirit will reveal blueprints. Pay attention, record them. Do not dismiss what seems small, because the smallest detail can unravel the largest deception. Daniel interpreted dreams that shifted empires. Joseph's dreams preserved nations. Your prophetic sight is not ornamental, it is governmental. Use it as the radar of your next assignment. And remember, alliances will continue to form around you. Some will be genuine, sent as reinforcements, but others will come as counterfeit wolves in sheep's clothing, hoping to sit close enough to study your strategy. Discernment will be your weapon here. Test every spirit, weigh every word. Do not allow flattery to disarm you. What you build next must be fortified against infiltration. Guard your circle with prayer, with fasting, with watchfulness. Your promotion is not just about rank, it is about territory. Heaven has shifted your jurisdiction. You will notice that your influence now touches areas you didn't even pursue. People you have never spoken to will feel your impact. That is not coincidence, it is the expanding ripple of your obedience. Walk in it boldly, Joshua was told. Every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that have I given unto you. Understand this, the land is already yours. The challenge is to walk it out without shrinking back. For those who are still watching from the sidelines, your story is their prophecy. Your victory is their evidence that light can pierce the most fortified darkness. Do not forget them. Speak to them. Encourage them. Remind them that their silence today can be transformed into testimony tomorrow. You are not just living for yourself. You are living as a living witness, a divine announcement that the kingdom is breaking in. The shadow council underestimated you, but heaven never did. They saw you as a pawn, but God saw you as a gatekeeper. They thought you were silent because you were weak, but your silence was strategy. They thought you were unqualified, but your scars became your qualifications. And when the time came, you moved with precision, dismantling in moments what they had built for decades. This is why you are dangerous to them now, not because of what you destroyed, but because of what you represent. You are proof that their systems are not eternal, that their contracts are not unbreakable, that their darkness is not invincible. So step forward without hesitation. Hold your head high, not in pride, but in recognition of what God has entrusted you with. Continue to build, continue to guard, continue to declare. This is your season of responsibility, of leadership, of weight, and while the enemy will continue to hiss, remember the words of Isaiah 54:17. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against you in judgment you shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord. Chosen one, you are walking proof that the mask has been pulled off. The tables have turned, and promotion is no longer pending, it is sealed. Now the world will watch what you do with it, but heaven already knows you were born for such a time as this. You can finally release the breath you've been holding, the tension that lived in your chest, the heaviness that pressed on your shoulders. It is gone. Not because the fight was easy, not because the storm was small, but because you endured long enough to see the tables turn. This is not relief from escape. This is the calm that belongs to those who stood their ground when everything tried to break them. This is your inheritance as a chosen one. You are no longer moving as a survivor. You are no longer running as a fugitive. You are established. You are seated. You are crowned. This is the stillness after the thunder, the holy silence that follows the storm. Everything in your spirit testifies that something irreversible has shifted. You didn't just win a skirmish, you altered the atmosphere. You redefined the landscape of the battlefield. And you did it without bowing, without selling out, without losing your soul in the process. The Shadow Council is undone because you endured longer than their schemes. They wrote contracts in hidden rooms. They whispered lies in dark places. They spun webs of manipulation, hoping you would collapse under the weight of confusion. But their deadlines expired. Their influence leaked out. Their whispers dissolved in the presence of truth. The very nets they set to trap you became the evidence heaven used to vindicate you. What they meant to bury you in became your planting ground. The silence they tried to force on you became the amplifier for your voice. What was designed to erase you has now etched your story into the eternal record. You are living testimony of Romans 8:28, that all things, even betrayal, even warfare, even shadow councils, work together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to His purpose. And here is the prophetic closure that many miss. You no longer need to prove anything. You don't need to justify yourself. You don't need to chase recognition. Heaven has already declared the verdict. The court of eternity has stamped your promotion. What you carry now cannot be revoked, cannot be altered, cannot be diluted by human hands. The authority on your life is sealed. The mantle on your shoulders is confirmed. The favor surrounding you is irreversible. This is why you walk differently now. Not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. You don't rush to defend yourself against accusations. They collapse on their own. You don't scramble to fit into spaces. They are rearranged to fit you. You don't compete with noise. You are set apart by clarity. Your power is not in how loud you shout, but in the authority that drips from your silence, from your presence, from your unshakable alignment with heaven. From here, everything changes. Your seat has shifted. Your voice has been amplified. Your reach has expanded. The shadow council is fractured, and their reign is collapsing, but you remain rooted, steady, anointed. This is why Isaiah 54:17 stands like a banner over your life. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord. That is your heritage now. That is your portion. That is your forever reality. Chosen one, lift your head. The mask is gone. The council is scattered.